first time I went to Canada fishing was in 1963. The first vacation I ever had with my dad. And I didn't have much money. And I left this 63, I went to Canada with $80 in my pocket. That's all I had. And I didn't want to, my dad was one that every time he seen a creek, he thought there was fishing. And he'd pull off the road, he'd look in the river for fish. And one time, when we was going across to where we was going to go fishing in Canada, and we looked in the river and there's a whole bunch of suckers. So.
What's a sucker?
Well, we ate them. We used to eat a lot of them, but they were just not. They're not big. They're not good fish. They're more like a carp, but they're not. They're smaller than a carp. But it's full of suckers. So I'm afraid I'm going to lose my billfold, and I take it out of my pocket and stick it in my coat pocket. So anyway, I go back to the truck and I'm trying to get I'm getting a net, and I'm going to try and net some of these suckers. So I'm laying on a culvert going underneath the road, and luckily the water was running the opposite way from, and I leaned down over there and trying to net this one of them suckers, and I stood up and my billfold fell into the river. And all my money, fishing license, whole kit and caboodle. So I looked at it floating. It was floating on the river. So I ran across the road, laid down on the tile on the other side, and netted it on the way by. One time we got there, my brother, my oldest boy, or youngest boy, my brother, his two boys, and his son-in-law was up there fishing. And we caught a bunch of fish. We had, you can only have on hand your limit, no more. So there were 5 of us, there were 6 of us, there was 36 fish we could have on hand. So we caught 8, we had 18 and we had them in a freezer. So we ran across, we went on another lake fishing, and we each caught, all of us caught our limit. So now we got 18 fish too many. So we goes back, my boy and his 2 cousins they had caught their limit, they'd gone home and cleaned them. And they was gonna go up to the restaurant up there and watch a hockey game. So we got back just as they was leaving with my brother and his son-in-law and I. And we go down, I said, well, Jeff, I says, you go on with the boys to the hockey game, and Lou and I'll take care of our fish. So he goes down, and I told my brother, I says, let's go get them fish we got in the freezer and put them in a cooler and get them off, because it was like a rustic campground, all woods, but they had lots to be on, but there's bushes and trees and everything. So I says, let's take them off and hide them. And so we did. We goes down and starts cleaning fish, and the game wardens come in. And they're looking to see that we hadn't thrown any in. They had a place where you throw the innards and everything. They looked in there to make sure we hadn't thrown any whole fish away, just to get them out of. And they went, well, we want to go to your trailer. My brother had a 5th wheel. I had a truck camper, and they never did go to that. But they went to my brother's 5th wheel, and they went through the refrigerator. What's in that dish? What's in that dish? What's in that dish? No fish. Only the 18 the boys had brought in. So they knew we had more fish than we needed, but he couldn't find it.
How did they know?
Because the way he searched, he was sure that we did have. And well, when we met the boys going out of the campground right by the office, and we was all talking about catching fish, and I think they told them, but yeah. They went back. I mean, they checked everything out, and We didn't have,
Why did you think to move the fish from the freezer?
because the guy had told me that he knew some guys that got caught with too many fish. The game warden went in, asked these guys how their fishing was. And they said, oh, great, we got our limit to take home with us. They was going to go home the next day, and the guy said, well, what are you having for supper? He said, fish. So he knew that they had fish they were going to eat, plus their limit, and they fined them $800. So that gave me the idea that we ought to protect ourselves. Sally and I and Scott went fishing up by Toronto one year.
Who's Scott?
My youngest boy.
Youngest boy.
We went up, year he graduated from high school. We went up by Toronto fishing, and we caught lots of fish, and we was using, I had a 20-foot long pole, that just, not a casting rod or anything, but just a fishing pole. She had, I think, a 14, and my boy had a 16, and we was catching 18, 20-inch bass on them poles, and bringing the pole right down the end of it, right down in the water. It was so big. And one time we was out fishing, and I throwed my pole out. I think we had using bobbers too. I throwed my pole out, and I sat there and fixed her pole, and I throwed that out, and I went to pull mine in. There was line was busted right off the end of my pole. Couldn't see my bobber, couldn't see none, so I sat there and I relined my pole. Pretty soon this bobber starts going up and down. So my boy gets a hold of the line with his pole, and he brings it so I can grab a hold of it. I pull it in and got an 18-inch walleye on it.
Wow.
Fish was still on the line.
It's mounted on the wall.
No, that's not the line. I caught Sally and I was up with my dad and boy fishing, and we was fishing with minnows then, so it was no bobbers, and I throw mine out, and she gets her pole all tangled up, so I hands her my pole. I says, hang on to that. And I get her pole all straightened out for her, and I put a minnow on, and I cast it out. Take my pole back, and I haven't got it on my hand for 2 seconds. And I feel a bite. I pull on it. Caught a 29.5-inch walleye. It weighed 9.5 pounds. I got that one mounted at home. But she thinks it's hers, but she had nothing to really do with it.
How about the mounted bluegill I could have had?
Well, they call them perch down here. But she caught one that was about 11 inches long, and I put it in a basket. And I thought, man, that's a nice fish. I thought I'd get that mounted for it. I raised it up, the basket, to look at the fish again, and somehow it got out the bottom of the basket, so we didn't have it no more. We took a lot of the waters up in Canada were rough, and Sally and I and my dad was back. We left my mother, she wouldn't go out fishing, we left her in the cabin. And we got way back on this lake, it's about 20 miles by water to get to where you fish. And the lake got rough on us, real high waves, and we ran out of gas with the boat coming back, but we had a spare can of gas, and we put that in. Just got back, and we got pulled, my dad and I got pulled across that lake one time by another boat just so we could get over there and fish. We just had a 12-foot boat at that time. It was not deep and not wide, more like a canoe. And we come back across there in the morning, and it was a thunderstorm. The rope broke the guy was pulling us with. We barely got to shore and sat out the storm until we calmed down. We headed for the cars again. I had a lot of good experiences fishing with my dad. And fishing in Texas, caught a lot of fish, but a man named Earl Norman taught me everything I know about fishing down here. And he was a dear friend. I met him about the time my dad died, and he was about my dad's age. So I just kind of adopted him and him and I done everything together after he died. I was fishing in Yellowstone one time.
Well, tell us about Earl's dying.
Oh, Big Earl, he always said, Bob, he said, when I die, I'd like to be fishing. So, about 11 years ago now, I guess. He always kept 10 fish because he didn't want to clean any more than 10. And he was 88 years old. And he was out fishing about 11 years ago now, it was in October. And he had 9 fish on the stringer, and he got the 10th one in the boat and dropped over dead. So he caught as many as he wanted and died. But I've got fishing poles to home of my dad's and Earl's, Elmer, 2 or 3 other guys I got in my den or my little office area at home. I got all these guys' poles just running across the top on the wall across the desk because I'll never use them. But I got them in memory of them.
But back to so did somebody come and find him in the boat? What happened?
A guy got
No,
one.
the guy seen him when he fell over
Yeah,
out there, and they
yeah.
got him in. The fish was still on the hook on the pole. He got the last fish in the boat on. The guy said he just kind of raised up his arm and fell over forward, dead. Well, he wasn't dead, but his wife, the paramedics, got there, and she says, no resuscitation or anything. It was the way he wanted to go. And he was.
Bob,
One time we went up, one time we went to, Sally and I was out fishing in a boat, and there was 2 lakes and a little channel going between them. We went on the back lake, and I was gonna use the pole, light action rod, I was gonna use that, and I went to put it together, and the one end of it fell right in the lake. And the lake was deep, so and there was one other fisherman out there, wasn't no cottages on it. And there's one other fisherman out there, so I kept the boat anchored and didn't move. Pretty soon he left, and I took off all my clothes and dove down in the lake to try and find that end of that pole, and it was so dark I couldn't see nothing. And Sally had a fit because she can't swim, and she's worried I'd tip the boat over if I came back up at all. She worried I'd tip the boat over, and
did you find the fishing pole?
no.
No.
I lost it. Another time we was fishing up there, salmon fishing, or I went up, no, it was fishing steelhead. And we went up in the fall and fished in the river, and that's up by our trailer. And so I got in there in the winter, in the fall, in that one spot. So we was up there in January. And January in Michigan is cold, but if it got a current, the water won't freeze, and unless it gets bitter cold. But I had my waders on, and I got in the lake, and I went to step in the river, and in my mind it's deeper than it was in the fall at that same spot. And I was with water clear up here, and I was panicked. So I thought I'd get back out of here. Well, I fell. The only time I've ever fell in the river. And of course, the water got inside of my waders, but it didn't get full. I might still be there. But anyway, when I fell, I had a watch that she paid about $125 for her back then. And I stuck my hand down, in the bottom of the river, and I'm holding my fishing poles up in the air so they don't get wet. And anyway, we went back to the car. We stayed in the motel then, 'cause didn't want to in the wintertime.
And where'd you change clothes?
Well, I had a Carhartt pants and coat in the car and boots. So I stripped right down to nothing, got them clothes on, and we went right back to the motel. I took a hot shower, and I never caught a cold or anything. And
There was one more story about your hand.
Save the poles, but not the watch?
didn't hurt to watch any. It survived, but she didn't think it was I done the right, I done at it the right way.
There was one story about your hand that you had your hand cut and Sally would not take you to the hospital. I don't remember the details, but,
A nail gun up at Bob's.
Oh, that was-
oh,
That wasn't fishing.
there wasn't fishing. Okay, we can get back to that one.
And then, one time we was out in Yellowstone, my dad and I was out fishing on the Madison, I think the Madison River. And there wasn't a real wide river, but it was pretty fast. And, I'm using a fly rod. Well, my dad had one somewhere on the river, and I'd gone up, and I'm fishing, and I hear a noise, and I look, and there's a big old bull moose, not 50 yards from me. And I'm thinking, this is not a good place for him and me both. So I start back down the river, and this moose starts following me. And I step out of I cross the river and step up on the bank. And when I'm stepping up on the bank, he's stepping in the river behind me. So I'm thinking, boy, I don't know what I'm going to do. The only thing I think I was going to have to whip him with a fly rod. But when I got across the river, I started up the river, and he's come across, and he started down. So he went away from me. But then out here this year, I'm out fishing, and the hook came out of the fish and caught my finger and went past the barb right here. Caught my finger. And of course, when it gets past the barb, it's hard to get out. So I got a fish in my hand. I put that on the stringer, and I'm bleeding like a stuck hot. Well, first I had to move the hook around and make the hole bigger so I could get the hook back out. Of course, then it's bleeding real good. And in the meantime, I caught another fish, so I got that one in. And then I stick my hand in the water to try and get the bleeding to stop, and the water's too warm, so I just pinched my finger for about 2 or 3 minutes, and it quit bleeding. So I went back to fishing. I didn't go in, and it's all healed up. Then
Lost the fishing pole.
And no staph infection or anything.
Right.
Then
Yeah, really, from the river water, if
Right.
nothing else.
Then we went out here several years ago now. I was out fishing, or the fish quit biting like they have now, but my boat was still in the water, so I just took my 410 and went up and down both sides of the river shooting snakes. I shot 21 snakes that year.
Did you see any snakes this year?
Haven't seen the snake.
I don't see snakes anymore.
They're having a lot of them down by my son's, down in Harper. They've killed several snakes.
Is he on water though?
No,
No, he's in the
these are rattlesnakes.
rattlesnakes. No.
That's about all the fishing ones I got on here.
No, there's one when you were fishing up north on the Crystal Lake, no, out in the bay, Platte Lake, and you turned around to go to
Oh.
the bathroom, told
Yeah, my brother and I was surf fishing on Platte Lake, or on Lake Michigan, Platte Bay. We were surf fishing, so I had my pole set. I got my pole set up, and they're probably $100 wrapped up in each one. And I set mine in their holders, and I turned around and I went to the bathroom, and I turned back, and I told my brother, I'll help you set your pole up. This is it. So look, my pole had been pulled out of the rod holder and is still somewhere in Lake Michigan. I've lost 2 poles down here with fish taking them out of the boat before I could grab them. One this year. And my brother lost one when he was down here this year, but he had a heavy weight with a hook on it, and he throwed it out and he got it back. But the fish still on it.
How big a fish would it have to be to pull it out of the holder?
Oh, they're probably, most of them this year ran like 13, 14 inches long.
Not big.
Because I fish with 3 poles when I'm by myself. And of course I can't have a pole on each, but I sit there and watch it. But
But up in Lake Michigan, it would have been bigger.
you know, up in Lake Michigan, it probably was 2 foot long or longer.
What's your favorite fish to eat?
Walleye.
Do you put up walleye, Sally?
No.
No,
Then there we fry like,
you fry 'em.
you know, what you call perch down here, up home we call them bluegills because we have a perch. And they're really good eating, really good eating. I've seen my mother fry up 150 fish one day without stopping.
In the kitchen on the stove?
Yep.
Without a fry, baby?
Yep, no, in the regular frying pan. Back in them days, they didn't have what they got nowadays to fish, cook fish with. But I seen my mother just fry fish till she ran out. Have company, you know, and she'd fry up a bunch of them. Got some hunting stories. One time I was hunting with my brother, hunting pheasants. He was only 7, 8 years old. He's 9 years younger than I am. And we went out one morning before we went to school to go hunting. And he was on, we got into some water. I don't know how I got into the water, but I got into the water. And he didn't have high enough boots on. So I picked him up and carried him on my back. And then a rooster pheasant flew up and I shot it while he was still on my back. And I had to find a place to set him down that was dry enough so I could go get the bird. I was deer hunting with my brother and my best friend at home. And my brother and this guy shot 17 times at a buck. And they hit it a couple times, but they didn't get it. So they're tracking it. They ran out of shells. They're tracking it, and they finally catch it. So the deer, of course, wounded deer are dangerous anyway, because they can kick. Well, this friend of mine got on top of the deer, and he was going to cut its throat, and, and the deer kicked and ripped his pants from belt to belt, all the way down his leg, everything. And we're all laying there, or standing there laughing our heads off. And when I got over by where they was at, and I had a Chevrolet van, so we pulled the deer. She was with us. She wasn't hunting.
But nobody got hurt?
No.
Okay, okay.
So we pulled it back, just a small horn, so it didn't have a really big rat. We pulled it back to the van and we put it up on the hood part. You don't stick out very far from the window anyway. Put that deer up on there and the horn hit my windshield and broke the windshield of my car. And we just had a ball. Shot my biggest buck on Thanksgiving Day. It was 10 points.
When?
It had to have been about, it had to have been in 90 sometime. I'm
Up
not
there
sure.
in Michigan?
Yeah. And I had that one, I got that one mounted. When I was at home, living at home, we used to do a lot of rabbit hunting. And there would be days in the wintertime, it was a ritual on Christmas Day that we go rabbit hunting. We lived on a farm. And there would be days we'd go out and get 10, 15 rabbits without even, just had a ball. And sometimes they'd run the stone pile on us, so we'd dig them out of the stone pile, which is illegal then, but we did it anyway. Dug them out of the stone piles, and then we'd take them out and turn them loose in front of the dog, so the dog could chase them. And one rabbit we got didn't run at all. He died of fright, I guess.
About the time you were hunting with Scott, deer hunting, you sat on that stump.
Oh, it used to be, I had my nose broken. I got to where I couldn't smell nothing. So years later, the doctor went in and reamed it out, but it still isn't real good. But I'm sitting on this log, and I shot a nice buck. And I noticed a hole in the log 4 or 5 foot from him, but I didn't pay no attention to it. I told my boy, youngest boy, I said, Scott, go up there and sit on that log. I said, that's a heck of a place for a deer. So he goes up there and he sits down, he can't stand it, it smells so bad. So he looks in that hole where I'd seen it, and there's a dead coon in there. And I could not smell it, but he said, I couldn't stand to sit there. I've probably, in my life, I probably shot over 60 deer, I would guess. But, I probably wouldn't hunt anymore, but the only time I really get time with my youngest boy and my grandson is we hunt together. So. I bought a crossbow last year and I got one deer with that, but,
You did or he did?
I did.